Hello. Shit get crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious, crazy, scary, spooky. How are y'all doing? Welcome back to the Self Indulgent Podcast. I am your host, Mariah, and I'm coming off that Super Bowl, man. That Super Bowl halftime show is living in my head rent free. I am still processing. It healed something in me. You know, these corrective emotional experiences. That is what that was for me. Corrective emotional experience. Oh, wow. Wow. And I'm in Pennsylvania, so I'm like down the street from Philly. The fireworks and just all the videos and the excitement and the cheers. I'm not a Phillies fan. I mean, Eagles fan though, so I didn't really care too much about that. I was there for the halftime show, but I'm happy for y'all. I'm I'm happy. The joy and pride is nice to be around for sure. But I just, oof, that boy Kendrick. You do not listen. Don't cross a Gemini man. That's all I got to say about that. Do not cross a Gemini man. I have a Gemini man, so I know how they could be. And Kendrick just the epitome of what a Gemini man could be and what he could do. Did you guys watch the Super Bowl? How was it for you? I also know that there was a lot happening governmental wise during it, so it does kind of feel like a distraction sometimes. But yeah, we're here. I'm here to connect, to vibe with you, not to stress you out. We won't get into that too much. I'm sure you're being inundated everywhere online. But right now, my For You page is nothing but Black Power and the reaction to this halftime show, which I'm loving. I have not gotten into the analysis videos just yet. I feel like I need to live in the reaction and the hype for a little bit longer because it was just so chef's kiss. It was beautiful. And I'm going to ride that wave. Lots of wins this Black History Month. I'm very like, lots of wins. Corrective emotional experiences. Healing for sure. Say Drake. Anyway, I actually was not intending on filming today. Tuesdays are like my day to film now because I have internship 3 days a week and then I have class 1 day a week or 2 days a week technically, but one of the internship days I have class in the evening, but I digress. So Thursdays I have class and then Saturday is supposed to be a day for me and Jordan because we both are busy otherwise. That's our only day off together. And then Sundays I work at my regular job. Tuesdays are the days. Last night we went to go see me, Jordan, and our friend Noon went to go see the Attack on Titan movie that came out 1 day in theater. So that was nice. And but it was at the only showing we could get to was at 8 o'clock at night because they were only showing it for 1 day in the US. It was 8 o'clock at night, so we didn't get home until like 11. And then we stayed up talking. This morning I was tired. I slept in till like 9. Um, and I sat there and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna film. I don't think I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm tired. I haven't even considered what I would be talking about with you guys here today. I still haven't really thought about it. I just decided to get on and because that's what we're doing. We're trying to like not fall into the feeling of things, like worrying about the feeling. It's funny because I was on Instagram and this girl that I follow, the Jasmine's Garden, it was a live that she had did on Sunday before the Super Bowl. And she's very witchy. So she was channeling and doing like her church type of thing. And so she ended up talking about, and so this was me watching it this morning. She was talking about how, like, not being taught how to be disciplined, but like being disciplined by others instead. I resonate with that a lot because that's kind of what childhood felt like for me was like, do it because I said so. You're doing this as like, you're being disciplined versus like teaching me how to be disciplined for myself. And so it was interesting to hear her talk about it like that. She was really talking about how sometimes you gotta say goddamn and keep it going. It was interesting hearing her discuss it that way because her whole point was that if you want to be better with discipline, it really doesn't matter if you feel like doing the thing or not. That's not going to get you where you need to go. This ideal version of yourself, this version of yourself that you're chasing, that already exists, right? The version of yourself already exists that you're looking for. It's within you, right? There are pieces, there's an essence to you, there's a baseline that is always going to exist. And today you has to do things to achieve this ideal version of yourself, right? Therefore, you are already that. I think this idea, if you're not feeling like doing something, that's okay. That's going to happen. You're not going to feel positive. You're not going to feel motivated all the time. And we've talked about some of this before. When it is hard, God damn, this shit is hard, right? I did not feel like doing this today. But this is where that mental stuff comes in, right? Like they always say it's a mind game. You play mind games with yourself. And she brought up this example of being on the treadmill and wanting to go for 3 miles. And she had all the energy, but after the first 20 minutes, all that energy she had, that feel good, I'm doing this, look at me, I'm doing this, all of that faded after the first 20 minutes. And she still had a mile to go. She was almost at the 2 mile mark. So then she was telling herself, why not just do 2 miles? Who's going to know, right? I'll just stop at 2 miles instead of my 3 mile goal day. 3 miles a day goal. I'm just going to do 2 today because I'm tired. So she was almost at 2. She was like, all right, come on. You got 10 more minutes to be at the 2 mile mark. Let's just get there. Then when she looked again, it was 2.1. And then she asked herself, what's another 0.9 miles? What's another 0.9 miles? It's all a mind game because at the end of the day, it's not really that much harder than it was 10 minutes ago. That last 10 minutes you just did is not actually any different from the next 10 minutes you're about to do, right? The speed hasn't changed. Your legs are still functioning. They're still moving. You might be getting tired. There might be some soreness. You know, I'll get shin splints sometimes and have to stop for the fear of injury. That's different. We're not talking about that. But we're talking about the thoughts that start to come in. If we let ourselves believe and listen to every thought we ever had, we would all be crazy. Some of us are crazy. Our president, that's a motherfucker who I believe just says and does all the thoughts he has. Crazy, okay? We have inside head thoughts. Let's keep it there. You don't have to believe every thought you have. It would drive us crazy if we actually did that. And yet we still give them so much power, right? Because we believe them so deeply. A lot of them are automatic. They come up and happen over and over again. And you are kind of at the whim of these automatic thoughts that you've had. The only way they're going to change is if you override them and start having new thoughts, right? And there's several different ways to do that. We've talked about body work, we've talked about thought work, affirmational work, those types of things, so that you can have new automatic thoughts. And something else she was saying was like, you just got to tell them to get the fuck. You got to tell, like, whether the devil, whoever, you got to tell those thoughts, get the fuck, get the fuck. You are not helping me. This is not doing anything for me. So get the fuck, go away. So that actually completely shifted my morning. I was just like, damn, you right, girl. You really are right. The version of myself that I want to be already exists. I just too often let the thoughts take control. When you get stuck on these little things, it could be the smallest thought of like, damn, I was really tired yesterday. We went to bed late. I'm tired this morning. It was hard to wake up this morning, right? Like you let yourself go down that spiral and then all of a sudden you're having the thoughts of like, oh, I guess I could skip kind of what I wanted to do today, right? Like if I didn't watch that and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna film or go to the gym, I promise you I would have been very upset at myself. Very upset at myself come 3 hours from now, and then at the end of the day, and then tomorrow. And I would have felt like, damn, why didn't I do anything? I just got done telling y'all last week how I have all this energy and all this stuff to expend, and I want to do more and be more. And then I just didn't get up. Then I just decided not to do it. Why? Because of a feeling when I coming off the strength of me just waking up. I was going to let the feeling of how I felt in the first 5 minutes of opening my eyes completely dictate how my day goes. That's wild. That is not very aligned. I just had a whole episode about how to warm up for your day, right? To get you going. I didn't even give myself that chance. I was already in that thought pattern of last night was not a typical night. I went to bed much later. I woke up much later. And now I feel groggy. So that just means let's throw out the window all the things that I actually do want for myself. That's wild. Like, we got to stop that. And I think this is where discipline, learning how to be disciplined, changes your life because you're choosing it anyway. You're doing it anyway, regardless of the thought patterns, regardless of some of the feelings that come up, because you know you're doing it for yourself at the core, right? The only way you're going to correct those automatic feelings and thoughts is by doing different and showing yourself the success. She also talked about having ADHD and how people with ADHD tend to be very incentive based. I think a lot of us are in general now because of these dopamine hits that we constantly get, this cheap dopamine and the constant need for stimulation. She was saying that if she can't find a way to incentivize it, she don't want to do it, right? Like, so if we can't get that reward at the end, what's the point? And that fucks you up. That can fuck you up because a lot of the ways in which we want to be when we're say like she's on a weight loss journey, right? Like I'm also on the weight loss journey. I want to tone up. I want to be thick, but like firm. I want to be strong. I already have the foundation for it. I just gotta, the food piece is what I always struggle with. And I think we've talked about this before. I definitely struggle with the food piece. But again, there's like these addictive behaviors that we all have. And so I'm going to come back to that in a second because I just had another thought. But she was saying the incentive piece, she was like checking the thing off for doing it anyway, regardless of how I'm feeling, and being able to check it off the list. That is the incentive because it brings peace, right? Because if I don't do it and I procrastinate, I'm anxious. I'm spending so much mental energy procrastinating, convincing myself why I don't want to do this right now, why it doesn't feel good right now. I'm never at peace. So why not reframe and look at it as if I can check this off my list, I get to bring myself peace. That's the incentive, right? And so this is how we start to shift from discipline to devotion and what you're devoted to in a very loving way. And it's not easy, right? Just because it's hard doesn't mean we can't do it. There's a lot of stuff stacked against us, though. I don't want anybody to feel invalidated by what I'm saying. Listen, I've been on this journey a long ass time. You can ask anybody who's close to me. I'm obsessive in optimizing and how to be better, do better, exist better, come to peace, what really matters in life. Like, that's my shit. I'm in the field of psychology, obviously, so that's where some of that comes from. But I'm very much a let's get to the core of the fucking problem person. I don't want to invalidate how hard it is because it is stacked against us, especially in this country, in Western cultures. I mean, and I'm sure all cultures have their own things, of course, right? But in these individualistic, capitalistic, Western cultures, it is hard. It is stacked against us. Why is it stacked against us? Because there are things in our food, especially in America, that are banned in other countries, creating nothing but addiction. We supersize everything. Everything is bigger than our eyes. It is hard, like our brains. And so this is where I get into my neuro shtick. I'm not studying neuro, but I listen to a lot of neuroscientists and neuro people who are doing the current present research. It's so interesting to me because it really helps explain like it's not you. It's not your fault. It's hard because our brains have been programmed and wired in a certain way. One, through our evolution, right? So we are already evolutionally beings that seek pleasure and avoid pain. Pleasure seeking beings to begin with off jump. So that's one piece of it already off the bat. Then we have overloaded our brains, overstimulated, can't sit still. We have all these things that are just like hitting the dopamine. And then we all got intergenerational trauma. So then what does that mean? We're super dysregulated. And here's the thing, we're not supposed to be regulated all the time, right? Like things happen, things come up. Life is hard. And so it can cause reactions to things, but it's how you feel and the coping things are the issue. It is the coping skills and the adaptive behaviors that we largely learned from younger that are no longer helpful now. They're very maladaptive. And so when you try to cope instead to avoid the feeling, that's when we get into rocky territory, right? Because the thing we're using to cope is usually really not good for us and it makes it worse. For example, there was a period where I definitely overdid the amount of marijuana. I'm not on a marijuana smear campaign. That's not what I'm talking about in this episode. But definitely was overdoing it. And it went from feeling nice and calming anxiety to numbing myself out. That's really what it was being used for, if I'm being honest with you. And I would say that an addictive behavior in nature to the need to do it because I was feeling too much. I was too anxious. I couldn't sleep. So then it became the Band-Aid, but then I overused it. And it's hard, right? Because it was a fun thing. It feels good, it's fun. I like doing it socially too. Like there's lots of different things and reasons why it was still fun. It's just the way that I ended up using it as a coping mechanism ended up going down the wrong path. It was not, I felt horrible most of the time. At the end of the day, marijuana does have some depressive effects. It does mess with the brain. At this point, like, there's no doubting that, especially a developing brain, before the age of 25, it has real impacts on the brain. We can't deny that anymore. That's obvious and true. For me, in the ways that I was using it, it was a coping mechanism instead of sitting with what I was feeling and doing that work and healing those things that were coming up. That is what I did. It was what it was. Once I became aware of it, it doesn't mean I went cold turkey and cut it out. I didn't do that. That's not what I'm telling anybody to do. For me, the awareness took me a minute to sit with that awareness, to understand that, fuck, this has become maladaptive. I'm no longer using it for fun. I'm no longer honestly enjoying it anymore, but I'm doing it anyway. So the coping is strictly to run from whatever I'm feeling and to numb myself out. And so, yeah, I sat with the awareness for a while, but it was hard, right? Because if you have an addictive type of relationship to something, because first of all, most of us are addicted to something. That is just true at this point. Most of us are addicted to something. We're all likely addicted to our phones or some sort of electronic device. What else am I addicted to? I would assume I'm addicted to coffee. I would probably say I would have a hard time coming off it. But then it's also like, if I don't feel like it, I don't feel like it. I'm aware that my coffee intake is probably too high. I probably shouldn't be doing as much coffee as I am or taking breaks just for my tummy, not just because somebody said so. With all the podcasts I listen to and the research that I listen to, I really do like health and wellness. I do like understanding how the body works and why, because we're not taught it. That's crazy to me that that's not basic education to teach us how our bodies work and what they do. How much money is going to research and they're not teaching us the shit in school? These grants, these funded research studies, and it's like, it's not being taught in schools. If we're not being taught how to live healthily, even though we have the information now. Science is getting better. They're finding more and more things out, and we're not being taught it. I'm learning a lot now, and it's overwhelming. I don't implement everything that I learn on these podcasts from these neuroscientists about the brain. However, I think it's at least important to be aware that the brain controls everything. The brain controls everything. You are your brain. And it controls your thoughts, your mood, nervous system. Like the brain is that girl. And so I like learning about it and the effects on it, but I can't implement everything at once. And so this comes, and again, so to bring it back to like, this is how things are stacked against us. It is hard to make changes. So I learned a little bit more about like what carbs do to us. And from I forget what type of scientist he is. He's like a cell scientist. And he very much was explaining how a lot of us are very insulin resistant and what that does to the body and what insulin actually is. And it was helpful to hear and understand from a scientific standpoint what these carbs are actually doing in the body. And he very clearly stated that humans have no real need and use for carbohydrates. So breads, rice, things like that are just like, we can live without it and it can do a lot of harm. And so then he started talking about ketones and stuff like that. Not I'm not preaching going on a keto diet, but it was helpful to hear him talk about it, right? Because we hear so many different things and there's so much misinformation out there. And so it was just helpful to understand what ketones actually do when you're in ketosis. Because my whole thing with the keto diet was I was like, I don't want to look like a deflated balloon. So I understand I lose fat quickly, but where my muscle going, right? Like that's a fear a lot of people have with the keto diet is like muscle and bone mass issues. But he was just talking about ways to get around that. He was not saying to never have carbs. Like you can't have, it's not that you can't have carbs. It's just that a lot of us are addicted to sugar at this point. We're addicted to carbs. And so it has lots of poor health outcomes when it comes to insulin. And so that's kind of the connection that he was making. It was a Diary of a CEO podcast. If anybody is interested in listening or watching, it was a long episode, but I commute a lot. So I listen to them in the car and I learned a lot. It was helpful to reframe and understand what's happening in the body and where a lot of diseases are rooted. I'm going to get off that soapbox. I only brought that up because I just was trying to express all the information that I know. Awareness is important, right? Coming back to the marijuana, I wasn't just going to implement all the things that I'm learning. That would be impossible. Not, I shouldn't say it like that, but it would just be overwhelming and not realistic for my life right now. So it took a minute for me to wean off of that because I was stressed the fuck out. Just being more aware and asking myself, am I doing this right now to avoid feeling? And then I would do it anyway, even with the new awareness. But I was starting to question myself, right? That's the most we can do in the beginning phases, especially when it comes to these addictive behaviors that end up with poor outcomes. A lot of it starts with coping. It went from coping to addictive, right? Because not only is the coping, the way that the maladaptive coping mechanism that you came up with helping you avoid your feelings and the pain, not only is it helping you avoid that, it's also making you feel a little good and you haven't felt good in a long time. It's hitting that dopamine response, and then that pipeline to addiction is quick. An awareness and not beating yourself up and shaming yourself about it is important. And I think once I actually moved past that, I became aware. I'm sure there was a little bit of shame and guilt every time I would do it anyway. Once I could move past that and just understand that this is not going to be easy, things are stacked against us. It isn't just tomorrow. You listen to Mariah talk in this podcast episode and never do the bad thing again. Like, that's not it, right? And I don't want to label anything good or bad, but it's to choose different for yourself and to be aware. It is unrealistic for you to wake up tomorrow and never use one of your maladaptive coping skills ever again. That's just not realistic. That's not how we work. But to start the process and start to question yourself, and is this in alignment? Yes or no? And eventually you get there. Like for me, once I had the summer to start weaning without school, so school stopped and I was able to breathe a little bit more. We all know, I've talked about this a few times, that this last summer was really hard for me, but eventually I did have more capacity to be able to wean myself off of using it as a coping. All I did was become more aware, questioned what I was doing, why I was doing it. Sometimes I would do it anyway. And then stop vilifying myself and started understanding and saying, I understand why you're doing this. I understand. It's hard right now. I understand. Eventually, I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't care. And I was able to get back to a place where I just do it for funsies, to vibe. Socially is usually when I do it now. And then there are moments where I will still, if I'm really stressed, I might go for it, but it's not the same as it was. I've built enough resilience in other ways and been able to show myself that I was able to go without it long enough to see the difference of what it's like when you're doing this consistently versus not. You do show up differently. You do feel differently. So it's baby steps. You see how this whole process was like baby steps? It took the whole summer pretty much, but I wasn't actively, aggressively dragging myself through it. I wasn't going cold turkey. This is why they say those types of strategies don't really work, because it was my relationship to the thing. I needed to work on the relationship to the thing and understand, why are you doing it? I'm doing it so that I can feel better, so I can relax, so I can avoid my feelings. Is it really doing that for you though? Only for the first hour. Ah, so in the grand scheme of things, day to day, it might be making things worse. Yes, I am tired during the week. I'm not as sharp. I'm zoned out. I can't focus on things. I'm groggy. And then I'm wondering why I feel depressed. Was that all due to the weed? No. Was a lot of it? Yes. Okay. But I understand why you're doing that. I understand why you're doing that. And it's hard right now. It is hard right now. You're right. Then asking, why am I doing this right now? This is why. Okay. Do I need this tonight? Actually, you know what? Not tonight. Not tonight. I'm just gonna do something else. I'll just get sleepy some other way. Like I'll do something else. Then time passed. And then it was, you're feeling a little better. You're doing a little better. What is that about? Oh, is this the difference? Am I seeing a difference? Am I seeing how overdoing this is impacting me? Uh-huh. Oh, okay. This is, I understand now. I'm seeing the benefits of stopping or slowing down, and I'm choosing for myself to not overindulge anymore. And so that was the process. And that's how it's going to be, I think, for a lot of the things, especially when we have these conversations about discipline and choosing different and being closer to that ideal version of yourself. That version of yourself already exists, right? If it didn't, I wouldn't be here today. The version of yourself that you are beating up today, that you are not pleased with today for the choices that you are making, that version of yourself today, you cannot bully into making the change, because that is the person who is going to get you where you want to go. And they may not choose it today and they may not choose it tomorrow. But if you are going to get there, you need to treat that version of yourself in the present way better, because that is the one who's going to get you up to start making momentum at some point, even if it is not today. And so there's so much shame embedded into society, and this is why things just continue to cycle, and why people feel like they're not making any change. There's no momentum. They're not doing anything differently. And then they hide it, and then they go deeper into these maladaptive behaviors. And then that's all they have, and that's all they know. And that's what their body's comfortable with. The body likes to be comfy. The body does not like to do different things. It wants to do what it's familiar with. And when you have a dysregulated nervous system, if it is not familiar, survival on. The fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response, overdrive immediately, right? Even though it is what you want. You want change. It's hard. So you got to give yourself grace through it, or it won't stick, because you need to understand why, right? It's like when your parents say, like, when you stop asking questions, what are you questioning me for? That's not fair, because you deserve reasons why. Why do I have to do this? Because I said so. That doesn't help anything. That doesn't teach anything. That doesn't, all that internalizes is this self-abusive nature, instead of, no, it's an honor to be able to keep the house clean. And I'm saying this because I need to internalize this for myself. This is a large issue for myself, chores. And that is largely because of how chores were treated in my youth. So my relationship with this a little fucked up. And so I'm trying to internalize this for myself. So this is the example I'm using. It is an honor to be able to clean. First of all, to be able to do it, to take care of my space. And I can have fun with it. I can make it feel good, because I bring the energy, right? Like we talked about last episode. I bring the energy. If I can cultivate it for myself through love and compassion, I can do anything with that energy. I can bring it to anything. I can bring it to the chores. So what I've been doing a lot is playing music. I know people do this already, but like I make it fun. I try to, like, I get in the zone. I'm feeling good. I'm bringing that, I'm cultivating that energy the same way we talked about last week. You should go listen to it, because it was all about warming up for your day and cultivating that energy, because you have it. The things don't give it to you. You have it already, right? So you are that version of yourself exists already. You cultivate it, you conjure it up, and then all of a sudden life around you starts to change, because now you're a magnet. This is how manifestation and attraction works. You are a magnet now, because you brought the energy. You can't beat yourself up all the way to get the thing and then think all of a sudden you're going to have the good energy, because no, you never had it to begin with. You didn't allow that for yourself. So it's going to feel shitty. You'll have the high for like 2 seconds. I achieved the thing, and then you'll drop it. Again, I won't go too deep into this because we talked about this last week, but it is an honor to take care of myself. It is an honor to be here, to exist. And there's a reason why we're doing it. This is why people exploring the whys are important. Why am I doing this? If I truly deeply love myself, would I choose this? Question self in a loving way. Question self, answer self, and take whatever action you take, but note what action you chose, and things will shift over time. You will start to choose differently the more you wake up and become aware and conscious of what's actually happening and the whys behind things. Why did I get up and do this today? One, I heard that message from Jasmine that I talked about earlier, and it really hit. It was exactly what I needed to hear. I'm gonna take it because that's the first thing I saw when I woke up, and it shifted something in me. I was like, you're right. Because what am I really doing here? It stopped the automatic thought. It made me conscious. It made me more aware. It made me more present, so that I can make an active choice rather than a default behavior based on these automatic thoughts that I was having because of my change in night and sleep. And then it's like, why am I here? Because this is what the ideal version of myself would do. She would do it anyway. She would get up, she would warm up, she would do what she got to do, and then she would get on camera anyway. And she would go to the gym anyway, because why not? She has a whole day ahead of her. And that's how these baby steps and these small moments start to add up, and how you build momentum. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I am that person. Yeah, you always were. You just had to choose to be that person every day. You have to be an active participant in your life. A lot of us live on autopilot. And again, we already talked about why that is, right? That's how they set us up to be. And then you'll have a lot of people around you who are not supportive, who will say things and do things that are not aligned, that are kind of against the momentum and the change you're trying to make, because they're not where you are in the same awareness. They're also operating the same way, and it's hard for them to change. So how is it possible that you're over there doing it? This isn't real. You're just going to fall on your face again. That negative energy got to go. It got to go. And this is why some people don't tell people when they're trying to make change or when they're trying to do things. I battled with myself, honestly, many times where I want to try something, I want to do something. I got into this pattern of saying it and then never doing it, and telling people and then never doing it. I felt embarrassed because it was like, oh, I'm phony. Like, I don't do shit I say I'm gonna do, and that's not true. But it was discouraging, and then people will make comments and then not believe me either, and then that'll feed into it, and then I'm like, oh, well, I was actually really excited to do it, when me not following through had nothing to do with not being capable of doing it. But that's the message that was received because of others' comments and what I was saying to myself. It wasn't that I wasn't capable. There were just hurdles, and it's a journey. There are always hurdles, and it's a journey, and people change, the interests change, what I want to do changes. And I felt like I'm giving up. I give up too much. I quit things too much, right? And people have to remind me that, like, what are you talking about? You do think, what do you have over 30 episodes of this podcast. So what if you took a 6-month break? Why does that matter? You came back and here you are. This was a big rant. I feel like I was a little all over the place, but I say that and then I'll go edit and I'm like, oh, okay, this kind of flowed. This makes sense. Yeah. I feel very passionate about what we talked about today. And I would love to know your thoughts. I know I said a lot and kind of bounced around a bit, but let me know what resonated for you. I love talking about this stuff. I probably had more to say, but I don't even know what time it is. I would love to continue the conversation with you guys. So let me know what you think. Is there anything that you feel like you're working through and struggling with? Just let me know what your thought, what resonated. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. If you're listening to this on any podcast platform, don't forget to leave a 5-star review if you enjoyed this episode. Follow so you don't miss any future episodes. If you are watching this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. It helps a lot. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.